Howdy folks, and welcome back. So for this video I thought we'd go ahead and start getting our minions in the world. So we'll set it up to where we'll be able to start having these guys following our player around. They might be T-posing for this video, because we'll probably set up the animations in the next one, but that's what we'll go over this time. So all I've done so far in our project is I've created a new folder in the characters folder in our blueprints called minion, and created two more, one for the animations, one for the components of the character, and I've imported this guy from Mixamo. And for him I'm using the mutant animation pack, so like the mutant run, mutant breathing, etc, etc. But that's all I've done in here so far. Some of these are open already just because this is my second attempt. I got tongue-tied in the first one. But we're back to basics, and first thing we want to do is go to our project settings and enter the inputs. I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to call it summon. I'm going to set this up to be my middle mouse button. You can use whatever button you like, that's just the one I'm going to use for it. And then in our player blueprint, I'm going to right click and call that action event we just set up. So summon. But we don't want them to just be able to do it whenever. We want to put in some conditionals. So I don't want them to be able to summon if they're aiming to cast a spell or trying to teleport. So I'm going to drag both of those out. Drag off of one and type OR to get this. Returns the logic of two values. So it'll compare both of these and make sure they're both false. So if either one is true, it'll fire off that. If either one, or if both are false, they'll do that. You get it. Alright, so I also want to check out, since we're doing this on a toggle switch, that's the one from last time. So I want to find out, I want to add a new boolean and find out, is the player trying to summon? So are they already summoning, or if not, then we'll do something else. So B left click for branch. So as long as both of these are false, we'll hook summoning up to the next one. And if they're not summoning, then we want to set that to true. I'm going to create a couple custom events beneath it. Tried to combine below and beneath, didn't work. Add a custom event called summon cam. Another custom event called unsummon cam. And for this, it's basically the same thing as the camera shifts we've already done, but instead of just copying and pasting, I'm going to set it up real quick just in case anybody else needs a little refresher. So I'm going to add a timeline called summon. I'm going to hook the summon cam up to play and the unsummon up to reverse. I'm going to double click and open this up and set the length to 0.5. I'm going to add a float track called shift speed. I'm going to right click at the beginning of the graph and add a key to curve, set its time and value to 0. Right click anywhere else in the graph, add another key and set its time to 0.5 and its value to 1. I'm going to scroll out, box select both, click this button to zoom to fit horizontal so that it takes up the whole screen. Right click and do an interpolation so it's a smooth transition in and out. And off the update, what we want to update is our camera boom, because this holds onto the camera and can affect a lot of things without having to move this and getting it off its point. So what I want to adjust is its socket offset. So I want to set the socket offset and set target arm length. So I'll drag this one to the back, hook them both together. Drag this down to the update. My OCD kicks in, you know. If you've been here for a minute, you know. So off the target arm length, I'm going to type lerp, LERP. Off the vector, same thing, LERP, lerp vector. I'm going to hook shift speed to the alpha on both. I'm going to hook the update to the socket offset and drag this over just a little bit. Put that there. And then for the first one, we want the A to be what we're at, and B is what we're going to. For camera boom, the target arm length, we're starting at 325, and the Y is 50 on the socket offset. Alright, so what I want the camera to do when we're summoning is I want it to move further away and up a little bit so that you can see a little bit better where you're going. So for that, I'm going to set the Y offset to... Oh, that's not... Okay, that's not a value. I'm going to set it to 80 on the Y and maybe 15 on the Z. That way it moves over and up a little bit away from the player. And to get it to move out, I'll set the arm length to 375. So with that done, we can select everything, C to add a comment box, and we'll just call this summon cam logic. So I'll just move that down out of the way. And then if our character is going into summoning, back in our action event, we want to call our summon cam transition that we just set up. And if they are already trying to summon, then we want to set summoning to false and call our unsummon cam. Someday I will learn to spell. Today is not that day. So just a quick check just to make sure that's working right. Maybe up a little bit higher. So I'll come back down here. I'm going to set it. That wasn't very high. I'm going to go 45. Yeah, get him a little overhead view. So that'll work. We don't have to worry about slowing down time like we did for this one. But I'm liking that view. So then what we want to do is off the summon cam, like we're going into summon mode, we want to do a line trace by channel. Hook that up, and the start is going to be our follow camera. Basically it's the same as the teleport logic on this also, but I'm just going to go ahead and go through it again just in case anybody needs a refresher. So the follow camera, we want to get the world location, drag off follow camera again and get the forward vector, back that up. So we want to add a vector to this. Off the forward vector we want to vector times float, because we're going to add a certain dimension, certain unit to this, and then that'll be our end. So we'll hook this to that to the end, and then the world location as the start. I think the value I used last time was about 1500, so that gives it a nice, fairly close by. Off the out hit, I'm going to drag off and break the hit result. I'm going to add a branch. I'm going to hook this up. This will determine if there was a hit from this line trace, and if false, I want to set a custom event called retry. So I'm going to set that right here. I'm going to do a retriggerable delay afterwards and set it to about 0.01, fairly quick so that it retries pretty quickly. This is in case it misses something. It won't spawn just in the air like in the teleport. It'll actually try to hit the ground. So off the false, we want to just call the retry. But off true, Then we want to spawn actor from class. And the class we're gonna set, we want to set the spawn transform to the hit location. And the class is going to be our target point. Same one that we use for the teleport. We can use it for a bunch of different things. So off the return value for this, we're going to promote that to a variable called summon target. Then we want to do another custom event called summon trace update. And then we'll call that right off the end here. Now for the summon trace, I am just going to go ahead and basically box select all of this. But what I don't want is the spawn actor, or that, or the retry, or that. So if you have a bunch of stuff selected and you want to go through and just kind of deselect specific things, if you hold Control on the keyboard and left click it, you can either add to or subtract from all of your highlighted things. So I'm going to Control C to copy that, grab this, move it down, and Control V to paste it up. So I want to add a retriggerable delay to the beginning of this one so that it doesn't try to fire immediately after this one. Gives it a little bit of a buffer. I'm going to set that to about 0.01, just like that. And then we want to set actor location off the true. If it's false, we don't want it to move anywhere. But if it's true, we want to move it to the new location. And the target is going to be the summon target that we just set up. And then at the end, we want to call our... Oh, no. We want to do a branch. That is not a branch. I've got my keyboard under a desk because I'm trying a new setup so that maybe the mic will sound a little bit better or closer. So we'll do a branch right here and find out if the character is still trying to summon. And we'll hook the false up to this as well. Move it down just so we can see a little bit clearer. And if they are, then we want to call our summon trace update again. But if they're not, then we want to find out if our summon target is still valid. So drag that out, get it, drag off and say is valid. You want this one with the question mark. And if it is, then we want to just destroy it. Alright, so this is the summon trace update function. So back up here in our summon action event, if we're summoning, we want to do all this. If we're not summoning anymore because we figured out where we want to summon our minion to, then let's drag out this get summon target. You know what, let's remove that from the bottom here. And we'll add it up here just because I don't want it to try to shift from this function to the next one and not be able to pull this variable. So that's my bad. But we'll get the actor's location. I suppose if you wanted to, you could just promote that to a variable off here. We'll get that location, then destroy it. Either way will work. So get the actor's location. Do a vector plus vector. And I'm going to add 90 to it. So now we want to set up the blueprint for our minion. So in the minion folder, I'm going to right click, create a blueprint class of a character called minion underscore BP. I'm going to open that up for the mesh. Over in the skeleton mesh, drag in the goblin. He is tall. What in the world? Oh yeah, he starts tall, that's right. Jeez, look at that, I'm the minion. Huh. Alright, I'm gonna make him smaller. Let's see. So I'm gonna set his scale about 0.5. Nah, he's too small. 0.6. 0.75. Once he hunches over from his animations, it'll be a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to do there. Make sure his feet are lined up. Don't want him clipping into the ground or him floating above it, which it looks like he might be just a little bit. Yeah, close enough. Alright, he looks good. So that's all we got to do to get him started in the world. So we'll save real quick. Then back in the player blueprint, we want to spawn actor from class. The class we want is the minion we just made. And the transform is right here. And then we want to add this to an array. So we'll drag off and add to array. We want to add a unique copy of this to an array. For the array, we'll drag up and promote this to a variable called minions. That way it's automatically set to the right variable type, minion BP and array. Just works like there. And now the one last thing we want to do is set up a block so that if you've already got however many you want the player to be able to have, then they can't summon anymore. So at the beginning of the pressed function, after we check to see if they're doing any of that, or before, it doesn't really matter, whichever, I'm going to add one more branch. I'm going to hook the false right here, and the false right there. No, the true right there. And then we want to drag out our minions array, and get the length of it. Drag off and do a less than. That's greater than. There's less than. Then we'll drag off the B. Actually, I'm going to type 3 in the slot right here real quick, because I'm going to make it 3 is the max for right now. Then I'm going to drag off, promote that to a variable called minion max count. The reason I set the number beforehand is because when I compile, it'll automatically be set to 3. And then I'll hook this directly to that. So if the length of this array is less than the amount of minions we want, then it will continue on. But if you already have 3, it shouldn't. So let's check all that real quick. There's that. Hey, there's my little buddy. And then 2, and 3. And then, yep, I can't summon anymore. But let's get rid of that little thing underneath him. So back in the player blueprint, at the very end, after we create the minion and add him to our array, then we want to drag out and add the isValid and destroy node from before. So at the very end, if it is valid, then we will destroy it. Now let's check it. Alright, there's your little minion team starting to come together. In the next one, we'll start setting up the AI and animation so that they can start following the player around. So, catch you on the next one.